Hello, and thank you for joining me. Many of you who may have joined me in the past when I've shot from my studio may have noticed the emphasis on military history and theory, and there's a reason to that. This week's book is Mao Zedong Basic Tactics, as translated and with introduction by Stuart R. Tracham. I hope I said that right. Apparently, he's written at least one biography of Mao and some other works on him, so he really does know what he's talking about. And there's a foreword by Brigadier General Samuel B. Griffiths II, U.S. Marine Corps, who translated at least one other of Mao's books. So again, someone who knows Chinese and knows what he's talking about. A long time ago, I was involved in national policy continuity and constitutional defense. And so I read Mao with a professional interest. And I would say this about him. It takes a half book or so to learn how to read him, because Mao is very direct, but also very indirect, as is typical of Chinese people. We can think of the Chinese as, a bit on the blunt side and very just like on it. But at the same time, they often communicate in kind of an indirect manner. I was working at a school that had an exchange program, so they had Chinese teachers who were learning English here and teaching our kids Chinese. Great. Well, the first year was terrible because this is a northwest corner state, or kind of in that general direction. And they put the teachers up in a motel where anyone using a motel in that area is not tourists. They're up to something kind of shady. And because it was a very hilly town with no public transportation, unless you owned a car, you had no means to get around. So they were really dependent to have anything good on a weekend, that someone say, hey, come with us, visit us, or let me pick you up and take you somewhere. Next year was better. The district had bought a house adjacent to the high school, and they used one floor for an alternative ed program, and then the visiting teachers got the rest of the house. And this is where the indirect communication comes from, because apparently they didn't have hot water. And so they went to me to like, hey, we don't have hot water, we can't wash our hair properly. And I didn't pick up on that and said, oh gosh, they want me to go to the superintendent because they feel they can't do it themselves. And I didn't track it properly, and shame, miserable shame. To this day, that bothers me a lot. They were wonderful people, and they deserved better. Okay, Mao. He's very direct, but he was also indirect. So he'll use certain words like organize and politicize, but rarely does he say and put a bull in the back of the head who's anyone who's against us. This book, the other books I've read were much more on the strategic level, on the protracted war, on culture. His little red book, quotations, that sort of thing. This one is nitty-gritty tactics. This is a much more of a tactical manual. And as I read it, it came to me, the Chinese Communist model is you take over the countryside, and then from there you surround the cities and you choke them off and you win. Whereas the Soviet model is you grab the cities and then spread the revolution out from there, because you've industrialized, versus we had the food supply. And so that got me thinking about how, in the case of Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, the communists who won were the ones that were backed by the Chinese using Chinese methods. But it's a fair bet, I think, in some countries, the Soviet model, and I'm not in favor of revolutionary warfare, is incredibly ugly and messy, even when the cause is just. And when the cause is unjust, it's really bad to create really bad. The Soviet model would work better in some other places, and it all depends. So there you go. The other thought I had in all this was the profound difference. Right, when this book was written, the Chinese army was very much a peasant guerrilla army. And having liberated China in 1949, they then mix it up in Korea, but they're not operating on a very sophisticated, higher level. It's, we're not using air power, we're mass infantry assaults, that kind of thing. Later on, they mixed it up with Vietnam, with disastrous results. But they were still operating on a level that's not far different from some of the things that are in this book. It's coming out of that mindset. And now we see China preparing to invade Taiwan, anticipating they're going to do it in a few years' time, and it's a completely different military picture, right? They're not talking about we're going to conduct revolutionary operations on down Formosa. It's we're going to send an invasion force with amphibious landing and paratroopers and air support, and potentially using nuclear weapons to contain this. Oof, they're not reading this book much anymore, I don't think. I think they're reading something very different. So I'm no longer in policy continuity, but I got a lot coming back to this old thing. Brigadier Samuel Griffith also translated Mao Zedong on guerrilla warfare and contributed to The Guerrilla and How to Fight Him. And if you're going to read one book on guerrilla warfare, that's the one I recommend. Thank you very much for joining us. Take care.